Hello and welcome to another amazing episode of The Framework for Tomorrow. We are finally back with episode 32. Woo! Woo! And I'm here with my good friend Bryce for the relaunch, well, not relaunch of my show, just after the little break I had. If you didn't listen to the update episode before this, it was because I am a RA at my college this semester, and there was a lot of training I had to go through. And I really just did not have time during those 2 weeks because we were just packed from like 8 to 8 every day, and it was nuts.
He's a busy man.
Yes, it was a very busy 2 weeks.
Ain't no time for podcasting.
Yes, so we're back, and my friend who's with me, Bryce.
Hello.
He is the host of White Noise.
White Noise,
which is also in the Rally Network, which we are both a part of. You should go check us out at rallynetwork.net.
There's a lot of fun content. You can hear Keegan, the wonderful, amazing host of this show, on some of my episodes. At least the latest one. You're going to be on more, just so you know.
Oh,
you didn't know that, but I'm revealing to you now. You're going to be on every episode. Here's a contract for the next 10 years.
Let me just do a little signing here.
You pull out your feather pen from medieval times.
I turn around in my chair. I'm like, oh, I didn't see you there. let me just.
Hello. Pull off the cloak.
Sign that. Yeah. Speaking of, you kind of teased it a little bit. So this episode today is going to be about church in the medieval times, kind of when they came to more power that they had. Obviously, most people know. Well, I guess if you don't know. If you didn't know, the church in medieval times had they were very powerful in the medieval times because they were intertwined within the kingdoms during that time.
Right, they're sort of the political party, kind of.
Right, yeah, that's kind of how it was. It was like there was a problem or something they would be like, oh, we got to go talk to the church. We got to go talk to the church about this because they know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so that is what we're talking about today, and then kind of how that relates and how the church looks today compared to when they're in power.
They've come a long way.
What, Bryce, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So when you think about the medieval church, what do you think of? Like, just basic things, what do you think of?
I think of like the paintings, where they're like all weirdly wrinkly and they're like walking in a street and they got the big stick and they're like casting out demons and things and they're like, get back, and people are on fire. They're wearing purple robes and things.
The Crusades.
Yeah, right.
The Crusades. Yep.
King Richard.
That was a little bit out of the medieval times, but they did have some crusades during that.
He did some crusades, didn't he?
Yes.
I don't know anything about history. So the Civil War came before the Middle Ages, right?
The Civil War?
Yeah.
Like the American Civil War?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it did. Okay,
no.
I thought so.
That is so funny.
I think of those paintings though, and I guess I think of I don't know, them sort of living in like castles and things, and I think of monks too. I think it's a big thing. I don't necessarily know a ton about monks. I love Gregorian chants.
Yes.
Those are really fun to listen to.
Yes, the church. The one thing about the early church is the church had a major role in kind of the bringing up of music because they were the first to really start with those like Gregorian chants and sing those things in the church to God with all the different kinds of hymns and stuff they had. Of course, there's like ancient hymns, not the kind of hymns we think about today from like a Southern Baptist church.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what they sound like.
Yeah, exactly. That's my Gregorian chant. No.
Oh, beautiful. Warms my heart.
Pull out the hymnal, dust it off. This is an ancient document.
Yeah, so medieval church, that's kind of how they were like. And I'm sure that's what you think of when you think of the medieval church as well. However, the medieval church wasn't as great as everyone thinks it is. They were for sure a great, it was a staple part in history.
Yeah.
And of course we can learn from their many mistakes they had.
There were pros and cons.
There were
maybe some more cons than pros, but
they had a habit of burning witches.
That's always fun.
Most of the time,
witch, quote unquote.
Oh yeah, quote unquote. We don't know if they were actually witches, but I know there's some shows where it's always like, oh, I'm not a witch, and like they're actually not a witch and they burn her.
I'm not a witch, I'm your wife.
One thing I can think of is this wasn't in medieval times, but it was in Pirates of the Caribbean, the movie.
Oh yeah,
Remember that? I think it's like a fourth movie.
Oh, the one with the mermaids and stuff? That's kind of weird.
No, it's after like the main 3 movies.
Yeah.
And like one of the girls, I think it's the newest one.
With like the dead dude and
yeah. And that one girl gets she gets called a witch because she
can swim.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
Or
she can swim, no, but she's into like science.
Yeah,
she wanted
knows
to
her
study
stuff.
the stars, and she like knew a bunch of like herbal remedies and stuff like that.
Right.
She was kind of like a doctor scientist.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing.
They wanted to kill her.
They were like, women are smart?
Yeah.
That can't be.
What? Witch.
And it's ironic because guys we're so dumb.
Yeah.
And
guys are dumb as well. I mean, I always just like to say human beings are dumb in general.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
We all have our flaws.
Exactly. we all have our dumb side.
Yeah. For sure. So the medieval church, they did have a couple staple things, like I said, like music and stuff like that. But
right.
They were entwined with the government at the time, like we said.
And that influences their ministry so much because there's incentive behind everything they do. Mm-hmm. It's not like you look at the church nowadays helping the homeless. It isn't like that. It's more like, oh, we'll heal you of your sin, but you have to pay tax.
Yep.
You have to pay sin tax. Mm-hmm. Like, imagine.
Yeah, they were paying to get the priests were like, you got to pay us to get to heaven. Mm-hmm. So they're having people do that. And that wasn't a very biblical thing.
No.
Later, actually, out of that came Martin Luther, who was
the Reformation guy.
Yep.
Not the junior, though.
No, not the junior.
When I was a kid, I would always get confused. I'm like, which one is it?
Yeah, I'm like, which one is it?
Yeah.
I was so confused when people like Martin Luther.
Yeah.
I was like, huh? In the 1400s?
Yeah.
What? That's not how that works.
Yeah.
But he was the guy who started the Lutheran Church because the church was kind of he was called a good Catholic. Like he was a very dedicated to the Catholic faith, but
right.
he
lived
didn't
up to
agree
the standards they had, but
with the paying to get into heaven thing. So he left, started his own church. He posted a bunch of stuff on
the door.
On the door.
Like, bang, bang, bang.
It's like the equivalent today of like posting on social media.
Yeah.
That's
the old G Insta.
Yeah, the old G Insta. Just going up to the
your seal is like your profile picture. You know, you put some wax on there.
Yep.
That's me.
He's like, oh, that was Martin Luther. Dang it.
It's like, whoa,
He's
that's a long post. I'm gonna skip that one.
Yeah. So anyway, through from the medieval times going forward in history, the church fell out of power.
Yeah.
Because originally it was kind of just like, oh, everyone's a Christian.
Right. You just kind of
throughout
assumed.
Europe. Right. Because it's just like, that's what it meant to be like European.
Right.
And
it was a very controlling sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that kind of moves out of power very slowly throughout history. It wasn't immediate.
Right.
It was very, very slowly. Actually, all the way up until most of the people who came over to America in the 1400s were running away from the British church.
Yeah.
Because they were being like really mean about other beliefs and stuff like that. Like the early evangelicals were mainly the people who came over in the early 1400s to America. And they were like, we want to build America on Christian values.
Right.
Which aren't inherently bad. Mm-hmm. Like Christian values
the true
are good.
Christian values, right.
Like love your neighbor as yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, don't steal from your neighbor. You know,
right.
Like basic
if you don't
Christian
agree with
values.
Right. And if you don't agree with the religion, I think still thematically the worldview is the equivalent of being a good person. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, maybe something people didn't know, especially with the Middle Ages, that church, because they had control over the Bible.
Right.
You couldn't have your own personal copy. You don't have your bite-sized version for your car or whatever.
Yeah.
Back then. So it's like they had control over everything and no one knew what it was like. But then eventually, once we get to this point, people are running away. They know what the Bible is saying and they know that it's inclusive and they want to, live up to those themes.
Mm-hmm. And then the cool thing about kind of the shift from the church being like that over into America is America was like, hey, we're going to be built on Christian values, but like you're free to worship, any religion you want.
Yeah.
And because we're a free country and we don't want to be Britain, which is what was going on.
Because they suck.
Because, they were kind of being butts in the 1400s. But so that's kind of the cool thing. And sadly, throughout that time, I would say, at least as America, we're kind of drifting away from those like those early Judeo-Christian values.
Right.
That, I mean, that's a whole different topic we could talk about. But one thing in like American culture is that's kind of going away.
For sure.
And even just like basic respect for one another. And that's kind of came from the church and our, like the founding of our country built on those values. And, I'm ranting because I'm actually reading a book right now about this. But
ooh, is it by Ben Shapiro?
Ben Shapiro, it is.
Ah.
It's really, really good. A little tangent. It's called How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps, because he's basically talking about how both, not only, he's not talking about just one political party, because most people
they'll pin it on one or the other. It's very polarized, especially these days.
Yeah, he's talking about in the book that both sides are doing it.
Yeah,
that it's just becoming like just a big gap in the middle, you know, like there's no gap, there's no people in the middle anymore. It's like you're either a liberal or a conservative. And
you should hate the other people.
Yeah, it's really good because he's kind of talking about, hey, we can live with one another,
right? No
matter what your thing is. Like if you're a conservative and you want to be friends with a liberal, that's okay.
Yeah,
it's like
you don't have to kill each other,
right? It's starting to become culturally like inappropriate to have those relationships with the opposite party. It's like it doesn't. Like, you shouldn't have that.
Yeah, and it's because of what I think a lot of figures do in politics now is they sort of blame both sides do this. They will blame each other instead of taking responsibility for things. From what I've seen, I'm not a super political person, but I've seen it, and it seems like that adds to the divide because people just start blaming each other for problems and saying that we're the solution instead of, like you said earlier, recognizing that we're all dumb. Exactly. We're all going to mess up, and we need to take responsibility for our failures and come together to fix those.
Recognizing that we're human and coming together on those basic principles that America was founded on, which happen to be like Judeo-Christian values,
right?
But it doesn't have to be. It's like, oh well, it's Christian stuff, so I don't want to follow that,
right?
But it's yes, it is, but it's also just like basic human, like, be nice to one another,
right? Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be because it's a Christian thing. It's just like ethically. It's, you don't want to rob your neighbor. You want to treat people how you want to be treated.
Yeah,
stuff
exactly.
like that. So it's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, you can think about in your daily life as well, and just like kind of being like, oh, maybe I shouldn't like immediately judge someone because they're like, oh, I'm a Christian or I'm a Christian or I'm a Buddhist or I'm any of those, or even getting into politics. Like, I'm a conservative, I'm a liberal. Like,
you can learn from the people.
You can learn from anyone, yeah.
And that's a challenging step to take. I know, like, personally, in terms of like embracing other people's opinions. At first it was jarring because I'd been so immersed in a certain viewpoint because I was always around people. But then, you know, try to look for those people if you can who have different worldviews and reach out to them and have a chat with them about what they think. And because everyone has reasons for what they believe and why they side with a certain side, and once you understand that reasoning, you can take it into your own mind, and sort of realize that, oh, maybe we can think, you know, similarly on certain things, maybe not on others. But
and it like you said, it all comes down to respect as well. And that's just something that's kind of going away, but it's something we can think about and we can move forward with, in that aspect.
I have a question for you about tying it back to the church.
Sure.
So a lot of people would agree that yes, we need to be nice to each other. The basic Judeo-Christian values.
Right.
But I don't think a lot of people associate those, from what I've heard from my friends who aren't Christians. They wouldn't necessarily say that those are Christian values because people get a lot of judgment from the church in certain areas. And do you think that's sort of mirroring, not exactly, obviously, but sort of like the church during the Middle Ages? Do you think the church is coming sort of like another political thing? Because I know politicians use it sort of to manipulate people, and or it can be. It seems like it could be a tool that could be used. Otherwise, you know, even just people forgetting what the church stands for, I think. Do you think that's something that's happening and will continue to happen? Or
even the church right now, I would say, in a major whole itself, is also going through this weird divide almost. The church itself is not only because it's happening in America right now with politics, but it's also happening within the church, because a lot of churches right now are they forget about like the loving another part and kind of decide to just shove what they believe down like other people's throats.
Right.
Not everyone does that.
No,
not everyone does that. But the two sides is you have that side of it, and then you have the side that's almost letting go of Christian values.
Right.
There's a total balance within it. Mm-hmm. So, like, for example, I heard a story where there was a mom who was a Christian, right?
Yeah.
And she raised her kids to be Christian, but her daughter came out to her as being she was gay. Mm-hmm. And she struggled with it for a little bit because the immediate response is like, how do I respond? How do I respond
when it's your kid, especially? Like, would you go to their wedding?
Right.
All these, yeah.
And the thing she said that it kind of stuck to me as well. It's like she can still hold on to her Christian values and still love her daughter.
Right.
And obviously her daughter knows her viewpoint on it because she grew up in that house.
Right.
And the cool thing about it is the daughter actually, they had like a little discourse for like a couple years, but after that, they kind of worked it out. And the daughter she said that she would actually be more sad if her mom had just given up on all of her values.
Yeah.
And tried to like conform to being like, oh, being gay is okay.
Right.
And even though she didn't necessarily believe that, she can still love her. It's this because it goes like both ways. Because the daughter now she thinks that being gay is okay, right?
Right. Exactly.
And the mom, because of like the Christian values and her values, she's like, oh, maybe like that's not
right.
But that doesn't mean that has to be forced upon the daughter.
Right. That shouldn't be the forefront of the conversations you're having, because first of all, if you're looking at the Christian worldview, everybody's a sinner, and putting what you define as sin aside, everyone's going to have it. And when you see someone, you don't point out their sin to them right away.
Right. Exactly.
You know, there is that truth of with that worldview is pointing out people's sin when it's necessary. But there's also the thing of what the Christian worldview is eating and communing with people who are different than you.
And it's not like her mom is like just loves her daughter, right?
Absolutely.
And the cool thing about it too is like they can both respect each other's values and opinions on stuff.
Right.
And
exactly.
It can still be a mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because it does take two people to do this.
Right.
It does take two people. That's the thing. And the cool thing was that the daughter could respect the mom for being like, oh, she is involved with the Christian church. And that's okay.
Right.
Like, she doesn't have to go after the church and be like, oh, I hate the church. You know, stuff like that.
And vice versa for the mom, too. Doesn't have to go after
she doesn't have to go after her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that there could be like that example of that, because that's a big thing that's happening in the church right now.
Yeah. With that topic specifically.
Yes. So yeah, like you said, back to like your original question on it kind of reverting back to Middle Ages. I wouldn't say necessarily that.
We're going back to the Dark Ages.
It is
the
definitely
bubonic plague.
Oh no! It is. It is becoming a. People are trying to make it become a political thing, but at the end of the day, the church isn't political.
No,
it should have never been in the Middle Ages. It should never be now. I mean, it even says within our Constitution that the church is separate from the state.
It's independent, right?
Right.
It has its own workings that it does,
right?
Which are, you know, something to be said about what they do for communities and things. But yeah, it's not a political power.
Right. And we just have to, like going forward into the future here, and especially because this is a year of elections and stuff like that,
right?
Even going into this, we need to. Honestly, it comes down to our politicians need to kind of change how they're working, because they're the ones kind of creating the problems.
Right. It's who are the figureheads
figureheads.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's not just one side either.
Right.
It's,
exactly.
Both
Everyone
sides
thinks,
are just,
oh, they're talking about this person. We're not talking about anyone in particular.
Right.
It's everyone. And it's because everyone influences each other. You know, if someone's doing this, we have to do this too. And it's sort of this just back and forth.
Right.
And it's just sowing further divide in a nation nation that should be unified through love and mutual respect.
Exactly.
And respecting other people's beliefs. And it's hard when your beliefs feel like you have to condemn people for theirs. You know, but that's not, I don't think that's the point of the Christian values. I don't think that's the point of a lot of other values. But we've been made to believe that, we are supposed to shut other people down if we don't agree with them.
Right.
Because they're wrong and they're going to suffer because they're wrong. Or you're just like, I don't like your opinions, so get out of here.
And it's also okay to disagree with one another.
Right.
Like if you like, obviously, if you don't like the church and stuff, obviously you don't have to.
Right. No one's telling you to agree with.
You don't have to agree with Christianity. Right. You don't.
And you can still take in the values and whatnot, but you don't have to agree with the doctrine and the theology of it, because that's perfectly fine. It's not for everyone.
I'll put it this way. You can not like Christianity, but you don't have to not like the people within it.
Right, exactly.
It kind of goes the same thing with when it comes back to politics. You can hate the conservatives, or you can hate the liberals.
Right.
Like the party, like the ideas behind it.
Right.
But you don't have to hate the people within it.
Right. I think
either side. You don't have to. Obviously, it comes down to a different thing when it's like the KKK, for example, when they're like actually just killing people,
a hateful and objectively flawed belief system.
That's a whole different story, because that's like an extreme of that. But you don't have to hate the beliefs just because they're different than you. Right. You can dislike them. You can disagree with them. Doesn't mean you have to doesn't mean you have to not like the person.
Right. Exactly. I think it all plays into stereotyping, which I think is a big thing in terms of you meet one person from a certain, or there are the people who are the loudest, often represent things in the wrong way. And so you begin to.
Oops. That is my bad. I accidentally hit. Sorry. That was a little weird transition there. I accidentally hit the pause button. That was my bad.
That's okay.
Sorry, continue.
We'll keep going. What was my thought? You begin to identify the whole group with the one person that you hear the most, right? And I think we can all agree that all groups have people who maybe don't represent them in the best way. And then when those people start to find the group, that's the problem, because then you meet individuals from the group and you're like, wow, they're not at all like the people that I don't like. So even beyond not agreeing, you don't have to agree with the group, and also you don't have to like everyone in it either. But that's not to say you should dislike everybody in it. Yeah. You can dislike certain people, but don't immediately assume that everyone is like that person, because we're all different, and I think it's just important to realize that.
For sure, yeah. I think that puts the nail right in the coffin on what we were talking about today. Yeah, the witch coffin.
We take the burnt corpse and put it in the.
Yeah, I think this is a really cool episode. I'm really happy I had you on.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, dude. I feel so honored. Yeah, I'm honored to be on the reboot episode.
The reboot episode.
Quote unquote reboot. I had to back at it again.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening. Oh, I didn't have a random history fact for today.
No, we didn't do a random history fact.
Let me think.
I see the smoke coming out of your ears.
You see the smoke coming out of my ears?
His cogs are spinning.
Okay, medieval. Think medieval.
One time I wrote an essay about medieval times. It was about a farmer. That was our prompt. And I made him like a drug dealer in medieval times.
What?
That was my essay.
Okay. Here we go. We got one.
Okay.
Hang on. These kind of suck. Okay.
Oh, no.
I got one.
Okay.
So in the medieval times, shoes were considered ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah.
So they're allowed barefoot. Is it sandals or just shoes?
I think just like closed shoes were weird.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess I kind of think of like the jester shoes with the really pointy tips and the bells on them.
So
I guess
true.
that's kind of
I guess that's funny. Yeah.
Wow.
Shoes were considered ridiculous. They're weird.
Weren't there cobblers and stuff though who were like made a living off shoes? Maybe they were really expensive or something. Like you were only rich if you wore shoes.
That's true. Maybe that's
and therefore strange.
Yeah, like the common folk were like, "Oh, that's so weird. Why would you wear shoes? That's so weird. Who covers their whole foot?"
The medieval Kanye is like, "I'm going to start a fashion trend."
Yeah, I'm sure they weren't comfortable either though.
No, not at all, because they were just made of like wood or something.
Right.
I don't know.
Anyway, yeah.
That's a fun fact.
There's the random history fact.
That was a good
I can't
one.
believe I forgot on the reboot episode.
How could you? How could?
A random
It's been a
history
while.
fact.
This is a warm-up episode,
It's
right?
true.
Yeah.
It's true. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Thank you, listener, for listening, for tuning in. Make sure to check out my next episode on Wednesday. And
Ooh.
yeah, on Wednesday.
Nice.
And make sure to follow me on Instagram at The Framework of Tomorrow and send any questions, ideas, thoughts there, and rate me 5 stars on iTunes or any stars on iTunes because anything helps and gets me traction there. So that would be awesome.
I'm going on iTunes.
You're going on
I'm
iTunes
gonna
now.
give you
You're gonna rate
1
me.
star. No,
Oh,
just
no.
kidding. That episode with that guy, Bryce,
Yeah.
kind of sucked. I didn't like him. He
Yes.
annoyed me. No, I'm giving you 5 stars.
Thank you.
Yes. We rally together.
We rally together.
Network.
Rally Network. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to tune in Wednesday for another fantastic episode of The Framework of Tomorrow.